this hypothesis, and suppose I found that this hypothesis is valid. What is valid? This thing. Then what will happen? If this is valid, then what will happen? Then your model will reduce to this thing. Ct is equal to alpha naught plus this is 0. Then you have beta naught yt plus this is again 0 plus epsilon t. What is this thing? This is called Cancerian consumption function, which says that current income is dependent on current consumption. And in this model, you have the theoretical interpretation of the coefficients. This coefficient is autonomous consumption. If you put income equals 0, what will be the value of consumption? That becomes alpha naught, right? And this coefficient is also having theoretical interpretation. This is the marginal propensity to consume. Right? I have started with a theoretic model, and then by putting restriction, if the restriction turns out to be valid, I can go to a theoretical model. And there are other theoretical models which can also be driven. Suppose this restriction is not accepted, this is rejected, and the data says only this restriction is valid. If this is valid, then what will be the model? Ct is equal to alpha naught plus beta naught yt plus alpha 1 Ct minus 1 plus epsilon t. Now what this model says? This basically says you that your current consumption is depending on your past consumption plus current income. The past consumption is your habit. If you were having a Toyota Corolla last time, this time you will also want to maintain the same level of car. And if you are coming down, you will come back gradually. Suddenly you will not come to bike. In the first step you will come to Mehran. Alright? So this is your past consumption, and it is quite sensible to assume that the past consumption is having effect on current level of consumption. This is called habit persistence model. This is also a theoretical model, and this model was driven from a model which is basically atheoretic. See, similarly, you can have some other derivations as well. So, for example, I am assuming that only alpha 1 is equal to 0. Then what will happen? This term will finish, and you have the current consumption dependent on current income plus past income. This is having some other meanings. This says that the current income is windfall, and you don't decide on just what you got this year. You see what was happening in the past, and the two things jointly determine what the level of consumption should be today. Right? This is another model, and it is having another theoretical name. Basically, there is a book named New Directions in Econometric Practice. This is written by Choremza, And Deadman, I don't know how Deadman was writing. You can find the details of the model that can be driven from this ARDL. Basically, he is listing at least 10 models that can be driven from this ARDL model, and all of those models have theoretical meanings. Basically, what you did is you started with a theoretic model, and then the data will tell you what kind of restriction could be valid, and then after imposing the restriction you can come to the model which is having theoretical meanings. Surprisingly, the difference form model can also be driven out of this. You can also drive the difference form of models out of this. How? Suppose I am testing the restriction. The data is guiding me. I am looking at the data is telling me that this restriction is valid. What is restriction? Alpha 1 is equal to 1, and then beta naught is equal to minus beta 1, and isko hum, let me say, simple beta, right? So if I am imposing this, I will have Ct equal alpha naught plus Ct minus 1 plus beta and minus beta plus beta Yt and minus beta Yt minus 1 plus epsilon t. Okay, you can bring this term here. This will become Ct minus 1. I can write this as del Ct is equal to alpha naught plus beta into del Yt plus epsilon t. So if you are estimating the model and you are finding that this restriction is valid, so you can derive the difference form of model out of this, right? And similarly, there is some derivation. I don't exactly remember how it is driven. I will do it tomorrow, inshallah. But the point is, the error correction model that we have seen earlier can also be driven from this model in form of some specific restrictions. Right? So basically what happens, you have various models for consumption, for example. What model to be used? We were discussing this last time. The people usually do that they are taking one theory and then making the model in order to bring the evidences in support of their theories. This is wrong approach. This is just like we Muslims are doing. What we are doing, we have decided our sect first. I am Shia, I am Al-Hadith, and something else, right? Now what I will do, I will recite the Quran and Hadith only to find the evidences for my belief. And this is same kind of sectarian type of methodology. You have pre-decided what theory you are going to take, and then you are using the data to bring the evidences for what already is in your mind. What should we do? We should give the level playing field to every theory. We should adopt a methodology which is giving space to every theory, and then we will see what theory is consistent with the data, and that is making more sense. For example, we have discussed 3 theories. One was the Cancerian consumption function, another was habit persistence model, and another was leading indicator type model. All of these models can be written in general form like this. Okay. So what I have to do, I will estimate this model, and then I will get some estimate. I can test the restrictions that are written over here, and these restrictions will guide me where to go. Suppose I am testing the restrictions and I found that alpha 1, beta 1 both are 0. This means there are no lag terms and the data that I am having is consistent with the Cancerian consumption function. So after giving space to all the theories, the data told me to converge to Cancerian consumption function, and that is making more sense. This was quite simple kind of analysis. Sometimes you have the theories which are spanning around quite different form of variables. For example, what determines inflation? जी कहाँ से आता है? Yes. What are the determinants of inflation?